Queensland and Northern Territory region of Australia community media, publisher of Queensland Country Life and the Beaudesert. Welcome to Great Queensland. I'd also like to welcome those who are watching through queenslandcountrylife.com.au and times.com.au as we live stream our discussion, hopefully to an audience of thousands. And I encourage you to get on Twitter and tweet out what interests you from today's event using hashtag #GrowQueensland. So if I see you all on your phones, I won't assume that you're organising a drink after the event. I'll assume that you're madly tweeting out all the interesting things you hear today using hashtag #GrowQueensland. So what is Grow Queensland? Well, that's very simple. It's a chance to shine a light on the vast opportunities in the state's rural and regional heartland, and in the process focus on its most valuable resource, its people. And this is where all of you can help through your ideas, your reflections, and your questions. So let's talk. We'll get the ball rolling today by hearing from these people that we've assembled around this table, who will give up their valuable time to share their insights with us today. And I'll introduce them all one by one. I won't go in any particular order because I didn't know in what order they would be sitting here today. So hopefully you might get to see their name tags there at the moment. So help panelists, you can hold up your hand when I say your name. And please hold your applause until the end, just so that we can get through this as efficiently as possible. So first up, Locke has had 26 years in rural and corporate banking. During that time, he's been involved in funding proposals for most sections of the food chain across Australia, from farm production through food manufacturing and exporting. For a large part of his career, he's been working with global food and agribusiness specialists Rabobank. This has given him an insight into global commodity markets, as well as an understanding of the production systems and capacities of Australia's major competitors in the food and agriculture sector. Locke is Rabobank's Southern Queensland Regional Manager, a role which brings responsibility for 5 branches located across Southern Queensland. Deb Freckington is the State Member for Nanango and Shadow Minister for Agriculture, Fisheries and Forestry. Prior to becoming a Member of Parliament, Deb completed degrees in business and law, which saw her concentrate on family and property law, as well as working with multi-generational farming businesses undertaking rural succession planning. During her first term under the former LNP government, Deb served with the Treasurer as the Assistant Minister for Regulatory Reform, overseeing the task of red tape reduction. He was also responsible for the oversight of G20 in Queensland through her role as Assistant Minister to the Premier. Martin Lamptey is the Canberra-based CEO of the Royal Flying Doctor Service Australia. He's a board member of the National Disability Insurance Scheme and is the founding chair of the National Social Determinants of our Health Alliance. He's the former CEO of the National Catholic Hospital and Aged Care Network. That includes large hospitals such as the Brisbane Mater Hospital and regional hospitals such as the Mater in Perth. Dr. Michael Rice and his family have lived in Beaudesert for more than 2 decades, and together they have participated in the life of the community through schools, clubs, service organisations and in scouting. He has interests in acute and chronic illness, dermatology and skin cancer, women's health, and the education of our next generation of doctors. Through the Rural Doctors Association of Queensland, which he is likely to lead from June this year, Dr. Rice continues to advocate for both private sector services and capable public hospital services that meet the needs and expectations of rural Queenslanders. Councillor Greg Christensen was elected as Mayor of the Scenic Rim just last month. He is committed to delivering strong leadership to the Scenic Rim community to meet the challenges and opportunities presented to the region. Born and raised in the Scenic Rim at Mooran, his family connection to the region dates back to the 19th century. A self-employed business and executive coach, Greg holds a Master's in International Management. He's enjoyed a lengthy career in executive roles in the fields of agribusiness, mining and manufacturing, including a period as the Director for the Office of Manufacturing in South Australia. Paul Roderick is a 5th-generation dairy producer from Harrisville, where he manages his family's 300 cow dairy farm. He participates actively in the dairy industry off-farm, being newly elected as the Vice Chair of Dairy Australia's Regional Development Program Subtropical Dairy. He represents farmers' interests as Vice chair of the Premium Milk Group in their negotiations with the process of Parliament, and is actively involved in young dairy network. Dr. Neil Hockey is a program coordinator at the Mundjarni Housing Development Company in Beaudesert. He's a visiting research fellow at the Centre for Quality and Development Studies at the Faculty of Economics and Administration, University of Malaya. He has 40 years community development experience in India, Malaysia, Australia, and South Pacific. He has worked for over 13 years with at-risk young people and families in the Beaudesert and local districts, with a particular focus on Indigenous communities. Peter Scott is a graduate of Monterey College and University of Queensland College. He currently instructs students undertaking ag studies at high school and also works with individuals and groups of people currently in agricultural industries to assist them with getting their skills formally recognised as credit towards vocational qualification. And he's also a lecturer at CQ University. Please welcome our panelists. And before we begin in earnest and get one of our panelists to open up that in here, just some quick messages. Today's discussion will be structured around the 4 pillars of the Grow Queensland concept. And those 4 pillars are, if you haven't been tracking the Grow Queensland concept through Queensland Country Life, queenslandcountrylife.com.au, I'll remind you, we're introducing for the first time. So those 4 pillars are growing agriculture, growing our towns, growing our young people, and growing the health and well-being of rural and regional Queenslanders. And today we shine a special light on not only Beaudesert and Sand Rim, but the southeast Queensland region at large. We aim to finish today at 2:45 p.m. and I will allow time for your questions about 30 minutes from the end. So if you've got a good question there, keep it handy, and we'd love to hear from you about 30 minutes from the end. So about 2:45, we'll get the Q&A started on the floor. And before we fully begin this great sharing of ideas, I would like to show my respect and acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the elders past and present, on which this event takes place. So, what does from Rabobank? I'm going to give you away for that. I'm going to pitch up the first ball for you. If you're a primary producer in southeast Queensland in 2016, what does it look like for you now, and what does it look like for you in the future?
Thanks, Can you hear me there? All right? Yep. Look, I think what it looks like now, obviously there's some positives coming out of ag generally in terms of the markets that are opening up and the opportunities that we're facing as more of the country, but as a region as well. And some things that probably after a long period of time starting to look a bit better. There's certainly a lot of challenges though. Going forward, those challenges aren't going to disappear. You know, we've relied on and progressed through increasing productivity gains over the last 20 years, and we've done a great job of that. But we're going to have to continue because we are a high-cost producer of ag products, and so to remain competitive, we're going to have to keep looking for ways to improve our productivity. The other, I think, in the southeast Queensland, that we talk about that and look at the areas that involved in sort of 10 regional or 10 council areas that come into that. You know, there's expected to be forecasts showing 45% increase in population by 2031, which means that's another 30, around 1.3 million people coming into this area. That's going to have a big impact because it's going to mean there will be displacement of ag land. Not only the land that's directly used for agriculture, but also the buffer that's sort of there between urban and the rural activities. That in turn will I think will have an increased put increased pressure on land prices. So to make the ag businesses work and be profitable, it's going to be trying to get more out of what we've got, and that's through higher value industries, more intensive industries. And I think that's where we'll see a shift in what we're doing here. Apart from sort of the grading, and we'll be moving further up the value chain and getting a higher value product.
It sounds like if someone working the land, it sounds like that's a lot of hard work ahead of you. I'd probably like to go to Paul Roderick at this stage. Your family's been farming in this region for 5 generations. Paul, I mean, you hear a lot talking about that having to further intensified. You've got to, it's the old adage of get bigger or get out, or get work smarter, or you've got to achieve those 2% productivity gains that we always hear the farmers have to achieve. I mean, how are you positioned now? And you're a fifth generation farmer. Is there going to be a sixth generation of Roderick's farm in that country?
That's a really good question. I mean, they're 5 and 12, so it's a bit early to commit yet. But what I would say, I took note here of what Locke said about improving productivity. And I mean, it's a constant thing. But often in our games, or any farm game, if you don't know where you stand today, then you can't improve on that meeting. So I mean, for me, it's about what I'm quite passionate about with some probably the areas, getting people to know their businesses. We can't just be farmers anymore. And to be farmers, you need to be business people as well. And knowing the costs and knowing where those costs are focused, knowing where you put the most effort into it. So I thought that was a good point I picked up from the first thing. Regards to, I guess, the challenges, others, we can try to do things about a dysfunctional market, particularly in dairy, but we've also got to be proactive looking at our own businesses. I think if we can do those things hand in hand and not look for a saving with price, try to embrace the modern technologies that are around. I mean, it's never, I think the generation shift in science that we're going to see with genomics, or see that in animal breeding, we're going to see that in plant breeding. That's not GM, that's genomic breeding. I mean, we're going to see revolutions in that field, but we're going to need that. I mean, we're going to need massive productivity gains to stay in business.
That's reckoned, if I can go to you next, you're in opposition now, but not so long ago in government, and who knows what's in store down the track. Do we have the balance right, first of all, when it comes to housing and infrastructure development to help farmers out that are farming in these areas, like South East Queensland? I mean, do we have the balance right there? And what can governments offer practically to assist in this regard?
Well, it's a really interesting point when you talk about the balance between housing and agriculture. And as I came out here, John Krause, who is local member, was telling me, about the increase in development in the areas around here. There's a lot of new housing development that's encroaching on our really good agricultural land as well. One thing I think that's putting agriculture to the side, we obviously need to look at infrastructure and the road systems, such as that Mountain City Highway, to come out this way if we're going to support that amount of population growth in an area like this. But what I think for the agricultural sector, what they're really looking for is certainty. And that's something that unfortunately, I've just come from a forum this morning talking about native vegetation laws, for example. What governments need to do, and our role as politicians in a government needs to be giving our agricultural industry certainty, and when we flip-flopping over rules such as what people can and can't do to make their lands productive, particularly, and I'm talking about the native veg changes proposed by the current government at the moment, I mean, that makes it extremely difficult for generational farmers like Queensland to wonder, what certainty do they have, what land can they use in the future. So that's how I would say that.
Yeah, I mean, Paul, I might come back to you on that point because that does raise an issue there with vegetation management rules. I mean, is this something that's as a primary producer, or is it something that's concerning you, worrying you at this point? And I should also add that we did invite the Queensland government, representative from Queensland government, to be on this panel today, and they've declined to do so. So at some stage, I may have to sort of play devil's advocate with some of your argument there as well, just so that we can keep the conversation robust as well. But Paul, if I can come back to you, does that affect you? Are you concerned about what you can and can't do on your land? Do you have certainty?
I think that's an interesting point because I was talking at lunch and we were having this exact conversation with a couple of members here today, and we were talking about how the fact that for us, our farmer doesn't, vegetation management isn't an issue on ours, but it certainly is to the wider agricultural industry. But I think that right for us, that's particularly in dairy, is that right to farm and that education around what the community expects and what we particularly with some of the noisy minority groups around, that we've got to be proactive in that space and tell people what we are doing and explain why we do things. If we can do that and get on the front days when everyone had access to a farm or lawn, the divide between city and country is never more evident. It's never been wider. So I mean, it's up to us farmers as individuals to take that on. So yeah, it is an issue.
I imagine Councillor Greg Christensen already could be potentially a tricky area. I read that there's time this week. I mean, there's graziers that are obviously upset with these vegetation management laws, but you would also have a very large constituency, possibly even responsible for getting you elected last month, that would probably think in a totally different direction. So as the newly minted mayor of the Senior Community, I mean, you've been a great pains to emphasise that agriculture has a long history in the Senior Community and a strong future. So how do you reconcile this message that farming and the environment, you know, have both positive outcomes and walk down the path together?
It's a good question. Got me deep.
Well, you've just been elected, so you should be up with it. That's what we've got to say.
There's two pieces to this. We need to be clear about it. I mean, when we're talking agriculture, it's got layers to it that need to be dealt with different ways. So today we're talking in a very general term, but there is absolutely a conversation we have to have about how we treat different areas of land, different types of land. In my mind, there's at least 3 layers to that. And the layer 1 is our high value, high priority, alluvial river flats and all those areas of high productivity places. We need to have the decent conversation about protecting and preserving those for a proper use for productive agriculture and how we make that sustainable in the future. There are other areas, and category 2 probably crosses over a bit, where it's not quite as productive, but it's still got a valuable contribution, and probably is the place where we have the buffers. And category 3 is a good place to build our urban development, and it's the rocky ridges and all those places that nobody can really run cattle successfully or grow in. And that then, when you get those conversations on the right footing, and that touches a bit of adult conversation of telling people, no, get your hands off that, that's too valuable. And I think we have to be prepared to do that if we're going to take a 50-year view. If we want to take a 5-year view or the next election cycle view, you get a different answer. But our responsibility of everyone at this table and everyone in this room is to come up with an answer for the next generation. And anyone who's travelled the world and seen the disaster unfolding on some of what used to be quite high productive land in China would realise why it's so important for us to do this, because, to Locke's point earlier, in 20 years' time, people will wish that they had owned productive agricultural land and kept it, because it would be like gold. But we don't have a lot of people that on the side of things.
We don't have any housing, and we did try again. We could try to get some housing representative housing development industry on today's panel. I'm wondering how they would feel about, you know, having their housing estates on rocky outcrops and how your argument might be received by them. But as it's I want to come back to that about the message about the value of productive land and how that message is getting through. And I read the Country Life this week, and I was astounded by this. That 85% of SEQ's South Queensland's land base is still under the management of farmers. They're practically living cheek by jowl with all these people all in this morass of urban sprawl, and yet here we're still hearing about this urban rural divide. And it's obviously a message that we're not getting through. I throw that open to Pat, I suppose, for anyone that would like to buy into this, about how we can get that message out there about the value of productive land to the people who are actually buying our food and farming. And I can see you looking at your chair, correct?
This is a piece about culture and the way we build community. And it is something I'm passionate about. I've been a long student of the culture, both in business and in community. We have so many people who love the mythology of a rural lifestyle in their comes, without understanding the culture that you have to ascribe to live in. And that's a culture that respects the adjacent usage and the occasional inconvenience that comes with that. When someone's tractor is started at 4 in the morning because that's when they have to be working, or they're still burning hard at midnight because that's the only time you can make hay without was in place. And people, we need to learn how to bring people into rural community to understand rural community. And we lost the threads on which that is built in many of our communities. So people come out to live and work in the city, and they never integrate to where they live. We need to find a way to build that bridge as well, so they respect where they live as well as where they work.
Paul Roderick, does that ring any bells to you there? When you talk about the right to farm and having a social license to farm, is that becoming more difficult? And how do you think that bridge can be crossed to reach what you call a disconnected paper from what it is that farmers do?
Yeah, well, I mean, like I was talking about before, I mean, there's clearly a disconnect, and a lot of, we didn't have to work at it 2 or 3 generations ago. We had that uncle, that brother, the granddad on the farm. We had exposure to that, and I see Greg here in the audience today, he's going about by having tours on this farm. I mean, getting people out and see the real farm is part of that, but we can all do that in our own little way by, when we're talking to people outside of our industry, whether it's on a plane. We've got a colleague, Ross McGuinness, who browbeats anyone who sits next to you on a plane. And if you can do that, you've got a captive audience for an hour, you can explain some of the basics of agriculture, you've got a convert. I mean, we all need to be advocates for our area and for our industry. And by doing that, you can do that. And then we do mix socially in the scenic room. We have functions like this and others, and you'll get that opportunity. I met 2 nice people today that are the new chiropractors in town. And, we started that conversation about agriculture and what we do, and that's an easy way that we can all do that.
Well, we've got plenty of residents and business people in the audience today, and I'm really welcome their questions, your questions later on this regard. We are talking about a disconnected pot. And you're thinking, oh, I'm disconnected. I know exactly what farmers do, and we'd certainly like to hear from you. But Deb, if I can come in, I know you were trying to catch my eye there, and I was going to come back to you deliberately anyway, because I'd just like to get some more comment from you. This is what we're seeing with how the Palaszczuk government perhaps is, and again, they're not giving you an answer to themselves, but you've got a free kick here, so, I'm giving you a big argument here, and you've got a room full of journalists as well, so no pressure. Is this what we're seeing, how the Palaszczuk government is actually selling this message about, well, if you control what farmers can do on their land in regards to vegetation management, you'll save it for a while, you'll save it for a region, and you'll kill the plant. I mean, it's a very simplistic message, but that one seems to be coming through in our cities. Is that what you're up against in trying to argue the other side of that?
Yeah, look, we've got it down, and when I joke about someone taking a free kick, it's just so incredibly easy. Because the simple fact that there's not a representative of the government here today says it all. So what we're dealing with is this. I'm the Shadow Minister for Agriculture, Fisheries and Forestries in Queensland. Under our government in the LNP, the Minister for Agriculture was considered as one of the 4 key pillars. So it was an economic driver. And going back to just before I really have my government, but what we need to do is until the Queensland public really understand that agriculture is a key economic driver of Queensland, that's the sort of conversation that we need to be having with people. I mean, we need to be out there saying agriculture is as important as mining, and it is as important as property and construction industry. So that was the conversation we were having. We put agriculture really high up there. Our then Minister McVeigh, he had a really high up place in the cabinet table. Unfortunately, this government has listed the agriculture minister as the lowest possible minister in her cabinet. That to me disgusts me. So she has 18 or 19 ministers. The agriculture minister has the lowest ranking of any minister. Now, if that is what the Premier sees of agriculture as the lowest, doesn't even count it as an economic driver. I think it really is hugely disappointing for this industry, but we have no choice but to support. So we're seeing the end of the mining boom. What we need to be doing as a government, and that's what we're certainly doing in opposition, is to just make sure that agriculture is at the top of everyone's agenda. And one thing I would really like to talk about, and I'll say it now in case I don't get a chance later, but we really need to be, as well as encouraging people to see agriculture as a serious economic driver for our state's GDP, we also need to do encouraging education. I mean, this government now, today, it's on the front page of Country Life. Seriously, we've got an education minister that is contemplating getting rid of agriculture out of our curriculums. I mean, that, I just can't even.
Well, I read the same.
Yeah,
I couldn't get the consent to the government, they were considering doing that.
Well, why not rule it straight
Yeah, I
out?
just wanted to come back to the 4 pillars of the new government. We've got our 4 pillars here at Queensland. You also have your 4 pillars as well under Premier Campbell Newman. One of those 4 pillars, of course, was mining, and I'm sure there may be some people out here today who are concerned about maybe there's some exploration permits around CSG in this part of the world as well. And there were plenty of critics out there who said you didn't get the balance right the other day, went back the other way out and down.
Well,
Maybe a bit worried about what a future Springboard government, for example, might do in that regard. What sort of assurances can you give to other people of those that today that you wouldn't be contemplating something like that against this platform?
well, remembering that I'm not, I'm just one member in the AMP. One thing I do want to address is fantastic, it's a great critique, because it was actually Campbell Newman who, Campbell Newman in the election campaign in 2012 came out and stood beside Andrew Cripps, who was in the room up the back there. He became our Minister for Mines, and they declared that the Senate room, I think this is correct, to John to confirm, was a no-go zone for any coal seam gas. Now, I'm from Kingaroy. I have the seat of Menango, which has the Somerset in it. Now, we, pushed for that as well, but it was actually the Senate room in this area here that had that confirmation from household politics. So I think you can take a great deal of faith in that. I have no idea what the new government is planning to do, or if they have decided to make a commitment such as that. But we certainly made that in 2012, and I can't see any reason why it will change.
We'll just shift the conversation a little bit. We do have a lot of issues to cover and a lot of pillars, and we're still on growing agriculture. But I just want to go to Peter Scott. I think you're down the end there. If we're going to have a vibrant agricultural industry, we've got to have people to work in it, and we've got to be training the next generation. And that's something obviously you're passionate about, and you've also made a career out of it. So, do we have ag industries in South East Queensland that are attractive for young people to work in?
Oh, definitely. But I just want to make a point probably up front that I think agricultural education needs to be inclusive of everybody. We are focusing a lot on youth, and for a very important reason, because we've got a declining farmer population, but we need people in agriculture to help teach the youth. So it's not only about skilling up young people, but it's skilling our existing farmers. It might be just teaching someone how to work with an RTO and take on a trainee, and how to educate and train a trainee up into agriculture. But it's also about recognising those skills that some farmers have and making sure that they become a resource for agriculture and training their youth. So as far as South East Queensland, our organisation has a place at UQ, Queensland Agricultural Training Colleges, and just make sure everybody understands that's the amalgamation of all the old rural training schools and colleges in Queensland that are required. We now have a industry-based training organisation called Rural Training Queensland, which I'm a member, and we teach mostly out in industry. So we do a lot of work with trainees, but we also do a lot of short courses, forklifts, chemicals, chainsaws, and but also one example of where we're looking at not only youth, but I passed 2 farms on the way down here today. I was very proud to be able to point out to my colleague that that lady there on that farm, I helped her get a diploma of agribusiness, recognise her skills in doing all the things on the farm that Dad doesn't want to do. And now she's part of the marketing team that's taking Just Feed out to the public. And so we're actively involved across many levels. And I think we're in schools. A lot of schools have chosen to take on agricultural training qualifications themselves at Certificate 2 level. And some schools do it better than others, and some need more help than others. So they don't all have great resources, but they need to be able to find farmers they can cooperate with, and organisations like ours to help support them with resources and specialist stuff.
But as Brian is a very active ag science department up there, and I think we'll be concerned what they read about in Country Life this week, I'm sure, for the young people in this area. And Heather, I'm glad you talked about there about coming down and noticing farms, because I just want to bring some of the discussion out back on farm to close this pillar off, and a little bit left of the field. I actually want to go to our health experts on the table, because one of those issues I think, and others in the field think, is that farm safety is an area that is holding back agriculture. And Martin Levy and Dr. Michael Rice will come to health in more detail later, but you two perhaps have another take on what is holding agriculture back, and that is farm safety. And I'd like you to give us a sense of how dangerous it is to be a farmer in Australia. Martin, if I could perhaps start with you.
If I could make three comments on behalf of the farming culture. We're obviously ourselves not involved in farming and agriculture, but we in fact enable farming and agriculture to happen in so many parts of Queensland and across Australia. In order to be able to work in a country or a remote location, you enough to have access to a reliable healthcare service in the event that something goes wrong. The second observation that I've made is that we know good health doesn't happen in a doctor's surgery, it doesn't happen in a hospital. It actually happens within the community, within the family that you live. Having a job, economic activity, is in fact a key contributor to enjoying good health. We know that chronic illness is of greater prevalence in those who don't have a job, who don't have access to resources. So ensuring that we have a vibrant and growing agricultural sector is in fact key to ensuring the good health of people who live in rural communities. But unfortunately, the evidence tells us that working in agriculture is a very risky business. Just last month, we were able to publish to Flying Doctors a report that I just haven't had a copy of here. Responding to what you previously said, I like to come with a prop whenever I travel. My friend David in the audience today has some more in the very happy to line up. But the sad news that you don't want to hear is that the risk of injury, an avoidable injury in the agricultural sector is 9 times higher than the average oil industry's environment. What that tells us is that we are not managing the risks appropriately across the agricultural sector today. It doesn't say don't work on farms. Rather, it says we have to use the evidence about how to prevent accidents and injuries in the farming sector from occurring. And let me get on my hobby horse of quad bikes. The dangerous use of quad bikes on farms is one of the key contributors to the fire doctor service being dispatched to pick up kids in particular from injuries on farms that could otherwise be avoided. That's why we've taken a pretty brave step of saying in our report that children under the age of 16 should not ride quad bikes at all. So great is the risk. Now, it's a big deal for the flying doctors to speak to its key constituencies and say, we've got to improve the risk management on farm premises. But we want to be put out of business. 1 in 5 flights from the Royal Flying Doctor Service each year is responding to an accident that could have been avoided.
Well, where's the spotlight on this, and why doesn't that receive? And the numbers are horrific. We're not talking about quite lots of farm injuries and fatalities in general. I don't know what's up there for the road toll, but it's still, in terms of the impact that it has in rural communities when there's dreadful incidents happen, it's a major impact. And Michael Rice, I mean, you run a very busy clinic here in Beaudesert. You have seen your fair share of farm accidents, I'm sure, coming through the clinic and through the hospital. Does it frustrate you that more is not done in this space and not more attention is focused on?
It's frustrating. A lot of the accidents and injuries that happen will go directly to the hospital because they're a more acute service. And in our practice, they're looking after a lot of chronic disease stuff that you're talking about there. But I think the problem is that a lot of farming is small business, there's a lot of solo workers. Your big industries, your mining and manufacturing, they see the economies of scale and they see where poor safety practices cost them money across a large business. With agricultural businesses, which are often smaller, the attitude, oh, it's not going to happen to me, I'm going to get this done a little bit quicker, a little bit easier. The people that are affected don't affect the entire industry, but there will be individual farms, individual businesses that are affected quite badly. So I think the challenge is to find a way of building a culture of safety into an industry that is, in many cases, a lot of smallish cottage industries, and trying to make them all see the benefits of safe practice are important.
Thank you, Dr. Rice. So I'd now like to move into our next tour if we can. And we've touched on a little bit is that fact that if we're going to have a strong agricultural base, we need to have strong, vibrant rural communities as well. And that's what this next tour is going to address. And Dr. Neil Hockey, you're the only one I haven't come to yet, so you're not going to get out of this tour. So I know you're enjoying listening to the discussion, but I'd like your input here. I mean, you've worked, as we know from your bio earlier, a lot of years all over the world in some of the world's most impoverished places. Certainly not saying that the scenic ring or even our areas around here are anything like that on that scale. But if you could tell us in your own words what a region like the scenic ring, for example, has going for it, and what are the unique challenges of living here?
Yes, I haven't prepared too much for that question, but
nobody's prepared anything for the question I'm today. You're all doing very well so far.
okay, so what the region has going for it. Well, my family and I have been living in the Beaudesert region now for this is our 19th year. After living here, we wouldn't want to go back to the cities, having lived for about 10 years in some Indian cities and a few years in Malaysian cities. And of course, growing up in Brisbane, I'm highly appreciative of living and working in Beaudesert. Gladly taking pay cuts of substantial amounts just to stay working in Beaudesert. In terms of the cleanliness of the air, etc. In terms of what was the second part of the question?
Well, what are the unique challenges of living here for a lot of people? There must be challenges living in in what is essentially still a rural community, but living on the doorstep of four major cities, I'm counting Brisbane, Melbourne, Gold Coast, Ipswich, infrastructure issues, transport issues, connectivity issues. I was trying to get a sense from you about what are the unique challenges of living in this type of environment.
Yes. For young people in particular, my work at the Manjari Housing Development Company, where I've been working for much of the last 13 years, we engage with schools ranging from Cedar Creek in the east out to Boone and Caldwell in the west, and up as far as Stinboomer in Parklands, and down to some of the smaller ones out Darlington side. And obviously, transport, which you've already mentioned, is a big issue. But I must speak in on here to represent the Manjari Housing Development Company. Some years ago, about 20 years ago, there was a book called Green Book that was put out by Oakley, which I worked for at the state, at least on the management committee, is the issue of challenging silence. There are vast numbers of young people in the area that are affected by, for Indigenous people, it's the multi-generational legacy of trauma, and more generally, it's the trauma that comes into families because of the drug problem out in this region. And yet, in the midst of all of that, I think for myself working in the Indigenous community, is the frustration of knowing that if the communities themselves have the answers very often, but they are not enabled or allowed to speak up and contribute at the many levels they could, right through from agriculture to health to housing, etc. On that point, the Manjari Housing Development Company has been voted as virtually the top Indigenous community housing organisation in Australia and amongst the top community-controlled organisations in Australia.
I really like that point that you raised there, Dr. Hockey, that communities have the answers themselves, but it's about giving them a voice in that. And I'm happy to throw this question open to the whole panel, and I actually have asked this question of other panels and other forums about what the vibrant, thriving rural communities all have in common. We all have that experience of going to a rural community, a country town, and going, this place has really got it together, it's really going ahead. You might drive 100 kilometres the other way, and that's a completely different story. Is there anyone on the panel who would like to speak to that and say, well, this is actually what brings a community together, and this is what grows a community? Dr. Michael Ross,
yeah, for me, it's been a youth connection. So I'm still new to this community by some standards, having been here for only 20 or so years. But the thing that has made this community vibrant for me is working with so many people who are connected to other people in so many different ways. So there's family connections, there's community organisations that connect, you know, like the Scouts of the Swimming Club with community or the churches, but having a network of people who are interconnected, so that it's almost like everybody knows everybody else, and there's always this thing about country towns, everyone knows everybody else's business, and it's not really like that, but there's a network of people there who will support each other, who will bring ideas to the table, and I think that's what makes this community interesting.
Thank you, Dr. Ross. Councillor Christensen, I'll go to you next. I mean, you've identified lack of community connectivity as well by phone. The internet speed is one that relentlessly comes up in the other forums that we've held in Toowoomba and Crooking in South West Queensland. You've talked about emerging technology and infrastructure as well, all these issues. Can you give us an outline there about some of the challenges and how we move through that maze of challenges?
Well, let's put some context to it. Is Scotty Bookhouse here today? Scotty doesn't like this conversation because whoever, it's poison chalice. You know, since the turn into the end came around, everybody dreams that they'll have perfect connectivity. And the practical answer that no one wants to give is it's getting hard to do because Australia is such a sprawling place. But, you know, my personal experience is for the sake of 2 kilometres, I can't get an ADSL. I live with wireless, and when it's cloudy, I drive 8 kilometres sitting out of coffee so I can get my portable wireless connection to work so I can do business. Is that how we're going to create a great economy? I've got people at Beachline who you can only send a text to so they can drive from top of the hill so they can call it back. Is that how we're going to get the best out of our communities? So they're the issues we're facing. The opportunities are to find simple answers, and this is an unpopular conversation because the bulk of our communities live in lovely places where they're complaining because they can't get free Wi-Fi when you see outside of McDonald's. I'd be happy if I could just get reliable Wi-Fi. So, you know, that's the difference in expectation. Rural communities are dealing with that all the time. It is going to be absolutely essential that we can solve some of those electronic connectivity issues. But, you know, that's, why is that important? Because the other issue that's big is, and in this area it's pointed, the elephant in the room is Mountain Highway. It's never going to get the upgrade to be the commuter corridor that we're expecting it to do. And therefore, we need to be able to have a capable electronic connectivity in this area so that people don't have to rely on commuting to be able to have a successful career. And we need to be able to create a different range of industries in the area so that people don't have to think about being in Brisbane to have a viable job and a successful career. Because those are the things that at least half of our young people are going to be going in search of. And unless we can create a way for that to work in rural Australia, we're just going to continue to see the brain drain of some of our best capable thinkers who are the ones who can really transform agriculture for us.
But under the conditions in which infrastructure is rolled out, I mean, we're not getting into some sort of like right down over, like field of dreams more where you build it the way it come. I mean, you have to have the people and the economic activity there to warrant the infrastructure to come in behind it. Deb, you might like to come in on this one because I've got a feeling that you enjoy that popular conversation. So let's continue that conversation about you know, that's what happened first, haven't it?
Yeah, it's really a chicken and egg situation. I have always lived in rural regional Queensland and we lived in Western Queensland, Western New South Wales, and before we settled into what we thought was a really highly populated area on the coast of the coast, Kingaroy. So, you know, there was a reason though, that one of the reasons that I got into politics was I did a study when I was a local lawyer for the Australian Law Society basically, or Legal Institute, about how to get professionals back into the regions. And it really is incredible. I mean, it's an argument and a conversation, it's a conversation we need to have. Because I see a lot of people of my age and younger who have gone on to uni, have a professional career, and do want to go back and live in the regions. Yes, communications is a massive issue, but so is education and health and all of those things. So as a community leader, I suppose now in the South Burnett, people say to me, why would I want to bring my family back to the South Burnett if there's no high school, you know, for education reasons or then elderly people for health reasons. So we do have to look at all of those issues. And one of the ways that government can do that is just ensuring that they are spending money outside of those more highly populated areas. And one thing that I was really proud of when we were in government is we made sure that every budget and capital spend, irrespective of the numbers of people, that 75% of that capital spend was spent in the regions. So whilst people that live in a more highly populated area believe they do need the road infrastructure and might need a lot more regional Queensland, we're not going to be able to get people out into rural regional Queensland unless we have those facilities in those towns. Communications is a real issue. It's a massive issue. And it's an issue all across Australia. And the reason why it is such a hard conversation to have is because the goalposts keep moving. You know, 10 years ago, we would have been stoked if we had had the service in some of the spots that we have now. But rightfully so, it's no longer good enough. I mean, I talk to people out west, and the could be one we're really interested in to go to, where school kids doing distance there don't have enough download, or the parents don't have enough availability of download. It's not money thing, it's the availability of the download to really be able to do their school lessons. So yes, we do need to get that communication stuff sorted, but it is extremely difficult, and it is also extremely expensive for the taxpayers of Australia to fund it.
Peter Scott, I had a Q&A in the title there that was talking about how to get young people, particularly professionals, and I know you're involved with probably more vocational style training as well. I mean, do we get young people through the door to look at training and looking at studying agriculture? We've got to make agricultural careers exciting themselves. I mean, what are we actually doing in that space to make it sound like you can actually build a great career in agriculture, and you can also build a great career out in the bush? You don't have to go to the city to build a great career. Can you tell us what's done in that space?
When you say about building a great career in the bush, I started off as a jack bird, southwest of Longreach on a station, and I was talking to the CEO of Queensland Country Choice, and he said that one of the things they need is free Wi-Fi. So talking about data and data connections, and young people are very savvy with technology. They use a wide variety of it, and you know, the power of farming is nearly in the palm of your hand these days when you want to use telemetry to check borders, fly drones around to see what's happening in a paddock that you can't get access to, spot weeds and things like that. So a lot of that is exciting young people. And one of the great things that I saw is obviously in my era we didn't have computers, but in the first year of the Bachelor of Ag at CTU, I'm teaching whole farm planning, and one of the things I have to do is teach students how to use a mapping system. They have to do a series of maps for a farm. And the information that's available at your fingertips through Queensland Life and using things just freeware like Google Earth Pro, the thing that I saw was these young people are very competent at using computers. And they really enjoy learning that exercise. So, you know, I think technology is one of the answers for exciting people, but we've got to show them how it works. And we've got to show them how we can apply it. And then I think the other thing about young people in agriculture is when I started, if you didn't finish year 12, you didn't get to go to uni. lifelong learning, and it doesn't really matter where you start the journey from. You know, I had young fellows in my era who couldn't read or write very well, same problem that we're getting today. But today you're able to give those people more support after they go to school, and we need to keep building on that. And we need to be able to show young people that there's no restriction between vocational training and tertiary training. You can actually achieve both. And that's what's happening at CPU as well, is that they've embedded a diploma of agriculture in first year, give them practical skills for their next 2 years of tertiary study. So they're going to actually graduate potentially 2 qualifications. But one is not more valuable than the other, they're both complementary. So we shouldn't put any barriers up to learning, and we should make sure that it's lifelong learning, and everybody gets an opportunity, doesn't matter where you start.
Thanks very much, Peter. It's a good segue, I think, now into our next tour, which is all about growing our young people and our rural communities. And I'd like to come back to that second tour as well about growing our towns, but I'll save that for you, and you've got your questions when we start that a little later on. So, Paul Roderick, I might come back to you. You're next to Peter there. So, we're training young people in agriculture and our wider rural communities. I know this is a great interest of yours. I mean, you've got some ideas on how that can happen. You're a young person yourself. I mean, why do you continue to do what you do? Is it what your father did and grandfather before, or do you actually, I'm assuming, and I'm confident you enjoy what you do, but you might not tell us in your own words why you continue to be a grandfather?
I think you can sum up dairy farming on as a challenge, and I mean it's a constant challenge. And for me, I love to be challenged, and whether it's some of the off-farm roles or even doing something like this is a challenge. So I mean, pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, and sometimes that you need to do that if you know it takes some extracurricular learning. And I was pleased the comment was made by Peter that the engagement of younger people, and I say younger people, I'm talking in their 20s, and I can rightly say that as nearly 40, but those people are, those younger people are a different generation. They've grown up with the computer. You've got to excite them. They've got plenty of options of what they can do with their life and their career path. Whereas even when I left school, I had a few options, and I chose to go back onto the farm, and I felt like that was the best use of my career. And but now the world is the young person's voice, so you need to excite them, and the modern technology will excite the people, the younger people, and then how do you apply that into that particular rural industry? But as far as engaging young people, you've got to provide a social outlet in those communities. And what I've seen through my involvement with football club as a player and an administrator over a number of years is we're losing young people out of our community. We struggle to get younger underage sides. We lose them from about the ages of 14 and 15. Every year we had dozens of kids on playing 19s, and now they're gone. So
where are they going? So
I think they're going on to further studies, and but there's different options about what they can do with their downtime, I suppose, their leisure time. And they are leaving to go to university in town, but when they do come back, and you want them to come back to your area, you've got to provide that. And I think you asked a question before about what makes it a good town, and I think sport's one thing that really enhances the culture of the town. It brings people from all walks of life together. It brings different sectors of life. You got sport. Well, I mean, and then there's so you've got that, you've got your service clubs, you've got your churches, you've got those sorts of things that bring different people from different walks of life together to socialise. And the question was asked, how do we engage people that we hear the term of suitcase, so the people, lots of people live in my hometown of Harrisville that live and work in Ipswich, and they have no engagement with our community. And we've got just as many people, but more people in town now. There's less and less people who do those volunteer work, the committees, so on and so forth. So how do you engage those people to become part of the community? And then you grow your community with more people being active in that community. You can't say you've got a great community because 1,000 people live there and it used to be 500. You can still have a lot less of a community.
Well, I'd like to come to you next on this point. What role can banks perhaps play? And this is your opportunity, you'd like to tell us the banks who do have that. And what can banks do perhaps for your young person wants to get a start, get their first farm or take over the farm and need some help in that regard, or start a small business related to agriculture. This rather they have tailored products for young people in that area.
But just on the answer, the simple answer is no, there's no tailored products just for young people.
There was an opportunity there for reverse.
But there's a lot of things that you can do, and probably a big part of what we do in our communities is we've established what we call our client councils. These are groups of people who are based, I think we're now about 80 client councils around the country. They're groups of 8 to 10 people that get together regularly. We've got to set these up and then they're running. They come to us then and tell us what the issues are in their areas and what they need assistance with. We've recently set one up in southern Queensland, and the client council recognised that the first thing they wanted to do was to look at financial literacy for women in ag. And so next week there's a series of seminars that we've got organised going across Western Queensland to try and get that engagement and give something back in that regard. So that's probably one area. I think the other thing is that all our people that we employ in the branches that we have across the country are generally people from those areas. So it's keeping those young people, the young professionals, keeping them in that area and giving them the support so that they can get fulfilled and learn and develop without necessarily having to move away from the communities that they want to be in. We don't have a program where we transfer people around the place to grow ag. Our preference is that they stay and work where they want to work, and that's the way.
Martin, you've got a point there that you're already providing.
Well, we probably won't expect the guy from the qualifying officers to be talking about the importance of school education. They're not involved in it. But I was struck when I read a report by the president of the College of Surgeons in the United States. And the president said that whether or not you finish school is a better indicator of your lifelong risk of avoidable cardiac disease than your blood pressure, your cholesterol, and your smoking prevalence combined. What that tells us is that finishing school is a really good investment in your long-term health. So that if we're thinking about how do we ensure the engagement and the health and well-being of our young people, we know that there is still a difference in educational attainment between cities and rural areas right across Australia. So one of those solutions has got to be looking at how we keep kids engaged in meaningful education. I don't just mean year 12 forced on every 17 or 18-year-old, but the year 12 equivalence needs to be set as a serious target. But we also know from the research of Beyond Blue that 1 in 4 16 to 24-year-olds will experience a significant mental health episode that actually warrants a clinical intervention. And I use that word warrant very importantly. Warranting clinical intervention doesn't mean you actually get it. We know that someone who lives in a country area sees a mental health professional at a fifth of the rate of someone who lives in the city. There's a disparity in access to healthcare that we all know about in the country area, but we shouldn't have to accept it, particularly as we now know that mental health interventions with young kids in particular are more effective, can be just as effective when conducted over the phone or over the internet, particularly for preventing long-term mental health issues. So I think those two pieces of evidence, that one, study engagement finishing school, but also making sure that we are aware to the need to provide sufficient mental health services, be they face-to-face or phone and internet, to young people living in rural and remote communities across the state.
Thank you, Mark. But if we're going to address what young people want, what young people need, first of all, we need to identify what it is. And I'm looking across the table here. It has been it's something we haven't been able to get to achieve on any of our panels, and we'd like to know going forward. Is actually getting a young person on there actually saying, well, this is what we want, this is what we need, this is our voice. I mean, Dr. Nilaki was talking about great science. I think there's a bit of science around young people. We certainly have that in our forum. And if there is, I can't see it for a lot, if there is a young person out there that might require a questioning, a comment or something when we open the floor up for questions, if you could. But that is the first step, isn't it? I mean, what do who young people want. And Dr. Neil Hockey, you work with young people. Are you able to give us some insight into that? Are you able to somehow speak on their behalf here, or would that be presumptuous to do so?
You think it could be presumptuous? I'm just speaking from the perspective of my own two children. We would see that we have a fairly stable home. We lived in several countries with our children growing up. My wife's from a traditional Chinese Buddhist family. But it took until my son was in his early 20s for him to be able to articulate that one of the greatest disturbing factors in his life was he saw that the world that we as adults are leading to his generation was totally messed up. And despite the strong levels of communication we felt we had in our family, he had not been able to articulate that. And it was with a considerable sense of angst that he started to talk about that in his 20s. Now, that shocked me a bit because it made me realise, well, all around here in the Senate ring, there are thousands of young people who feel that they are not being heard, and they have great, very strong feelings about what's going on in the world, and they want to articulate it, which is one of the reasons why in our programs we work with children of all ages, right from 0 right through to older men. We have a men's group, we have about 20 to 30 men come to that once a fortnight, and we also get our own country during the week. So I think in terms of what young people really want, they want older people and peers who will stand with them as friends, as mentors, and who will help open up the doors to opportunities for them, and especially to get back onto the land. I can only back up the statements that have been said here about the need to strengthen agriculture, to get all of us back onto the land, and to have that sense of connectivity. I'm fully aware of the benefits of wireless and all the internet connectivity that we talk about. I benefit greatly from that myself, but we have all drastically lost our sense of connection with the land. And that's our passion in our community work, to help the young people to get re-established with what's going on. What is a weed, for example? What is a plant? How do you distinguish between the two? And what practices in our farming are we going to carry forward in the future in a way that doesn't harm the landscape and harm the environment, but enables us all to draw upon the local weeds, for example. How many of us here could name 5 weeds in our own backyards that we shouldn't be knowing, or shouldn't be dousing with Roundup, but instead should be harvesting them, cultivating them and harvesting them for our own health benefits? That's
That's interesting. In terms of, I mean, is that the work that you're doing with young Indigenous people about connection to the land, or is that a wider program of bringing young people back to the land and seeing that there's value to be derived from it?
Well, it's our priority because I work in a community and environment, but also have connections with many other communities outside, non-Indigenous. I come from a very large family myself, and I'm always talking to them about these issues. But my PhD thesis was about values, actions and structures for social transformation through Aboriginal communities, not just in Australia, but worldwide. And that's my lifelong commitment, that I believe that if we're going to find a way forward in the future, some of our strongest and wisest partners will be Indigenous people. But yes, even in our Indigenous work here, in all of our Indigenous groups, we welcome in people who are not of Indigenous descent to work alongside us. And that's people of all ages. And we are linked to many farmers in the area as well.
Thank you, Dr. Hockey. I'm going to go to the next doctor on the table there, Dr. Michael Rice. And then you work with young people too, but young people who are looking for a career in medicine. I'm moving now into our last part of our discussion, the health, in terms of attracting young people to work in rural areas as doctors. We're going to have health in rural communities. We need to have, as Martin says, good access to healthcare. We need to have good access to doctors as well. What are some of the programs that you have been working through over your years with AAQ and other organisations to attract young people who can really come and work in this part of the world?
Look, we know that one of the strongest predictors of winding up working in health in a rural area is coming from a rural area. So programs that are designed to make it easier for young people from rural areas to go into tertiary study and go into health careers are important. There's a number of programs there. For example, the Joint Food Scholarship Scheme encourages students to go and spend some time in rural areas. The RAME scheme encourages students from rural areas to study in medicine in particular. The other thing, apart from coming from a rural area, the thing that encourages young people to stay is providing positive rural training experiences. And Deb touched earlier on the need to get professionals back into country towns. It's not just in medicine, but it's in law, accounting, engineering, and so on. That we need to be encouraging our young rural people to go to university, to learn these advanced skills, but then to go back to their own communities and to apply those. And that's how we're going to get things like the infrastructure development happening. If the people are going out there with those skills to apply them in their own communities. But also, those are people who are not necessarily going to roll over and just accept that there's no Wi-Fi, that the roads are poor. People who've spent their time in the big cities, if you can get them back into their own towns, they're going to be pushing for the services there to be as good. The other thing that we do in rural medicine is particularly we encourage students to work with rural doctors, to come to rural doctors conferences, to meet, to talk, to build big networks that ultimately span the entire country. It's encouraging, it's supportive, and those young people feel welcome in our community. So even though we're still short of doctors in rural Australia, I think the tide there is turning. I think the work that's been done through the Rural Doctors Associations, College of Rural Medicine, the health workforce agencies, like Health Workforce Queensland, represent here today, is something that can be used as a model in other fields to get young rural people back into the communities with great skills.
Thank you, Dr. Rice. Martin, I'll go to you next. And I've done a little bit of my research here. Like you said, the journalists have done their research before they come to events like this. But access to healthcare, once you've got the doctors there, you've got to get the patients to see the doctor as well. And access to healthcare is obviously a key to sustainable communities. We've heard that over and over, I think, in this forum today. Yet your own research, released in March 2015, shows country residents see doctors at half the rate of city residents. There could be a variety of factors there, and I'm happy for you to expand on why that may be. Transport, for example, is probably a big factor. Flying doctor research shows that rural residents die on average 2.5 years earlier than city residents and have up to 3.5 times the rates of avoidable chronic illness. Now, I don't know if that's across the board, but South East Queensland here, people are probably in closer proximity to larger regional centres in order to access healthcare. But what causes this health disparity between the city and the bush? And what can be done to prevent avoidable illness in country areas?
It's not a pretty picture at all. Further you move away from the GPO and the capital city of Australia, the sicker you will be, the shorter life you will have. I said earlier that good health doesn't occur in hospital doctors. It occurs through social factors. Having a safe pregnancy, ensuring that we prevent the use of alcohol during the pregnancy. So good health starts before the baby is even born. A positive early childhood experience, getting them and staying in school, getting a job, living in the same house, preventing domestic violence, preventing violence against children. All of these factors are contributors to good health. But we know that as technological advances are improving, the bridge between city and bush is actually closing as to how we're able to deliver healthcare, even without terrific broadband technology. We've actually given up on waiting for the broadband to work, and we've found our workarounds to ensure that we're able to deliver clinical services from afar, so that no matter where you live in this country, you should actually have equal access to healthcare. And it's an absolute imperative. Let me give you an illustration. If you live outside of the capital city in Australia, you're at greater risk of an avoidable heart attack death than if you live in the city. Now, some of the reasons for that are obvious. The sooner you get to a cath lab, or the sooner you get to an emergency department in the early warning signs of a heart attack, the greater chance that clinicians have actually saving life. But there is still this difference. So there's between 20 and 30% greater chance of you dying of a heart attack if you live outside the capital city than if you have that event inside the capital city and you get to hospital. That's in every state, and excuse me for telling the South Australian story while I'm here, it's in every state except South Australia, because they've worked out in that state how to properly coordinate all of the different healthcare services right across the state, so that no matter where you are, if you present at a nursing outpost at the Queensland Country Hospital, there's a protocol that immediately applies a set of drugs that immediately connects you to a tertiary hospital that immediately gets the flying doctors in the air so that the aircraft is there sooner to be able to pick up and retrieve. And what we've seen in South Australia is that in the 10 years in which this protocol has been in place, today there is no difference in survival rates between avoidable myocardial infarction death, heart attack death, in city or remote South Australia, no matter where you live. Now, I'm pretty critical of my own home state. I'm from New South Wales. We have one of the worst differences between city and country area heart attacks. Queensland is somewhere in the middle. The solution is how we coordinate healthcare, how we prevent chronic illness from occurring in the first place. Cardiovascular disease, diabetes, these are illnesses that can be prevented, they can be managed. And if you feel yourself having a heart attack, the moment you get to a medical service or the moment one is dispatched, the greater chance you have of surviving. And it comes down to coordination. We don't have a great history. We, in fact, don't have a healthcare system in this country. We've got different pockets of it that don't coordinate. If we coordinate it better, as we're seeing in some parts of Australia, we get the healthcare.
Michael Ross was taking copious notes there and nodding away. I would love to get your response to that.
Yeah, I think one of the solutions there is to know where those disparities are in health outcomes. And we talk a lot about closing the gap between Indigenous and non-Indigenous health outcomes, but there are other disparities to be closed, and it's between urban and rural, it's between language and cultural groups. And I think the simple way to start to turn that around is to make narrowing that disparity to keep performance intact for our health services. So I think health services need to know where there are different groups that are getting different outcomes within the footprint of their service, and the service managers, the system managers need to be saying to these people, well, listen, what you've got to do is you've got to narrow those outcomes so that no matter where you live in your service, no matter what your Indigenous status is, no matter what language you speak, you can expect the same outcomes. And I wasn't aware that South Australia had such success in that particular field. So there are probably some lessons from South Australia to how do they drive that, how do they make the health service providers so interesting.
Well, speaking of success, I'd like to stay with you, Michael. I said we can't talk about the specific resident experience here about reopening the but as a maternity hospital, because that was a landmark moment for this community after that hospital. I'm trying to remember my history. I think it was shut by the media by government in 2004. It was a migrant rural maternity unit that was shut down. I take your point earlier there, Martin, about social determinants affecting your outcomes in healthcare. But obviously, you still need bricks and mortar, and you still need health infrastructure in order to be able to deliver health outcomes. I think during that period, we had plenty of women carrying babies to full term, but unfortunately, having on the side of the highway because the local hospital was shut and they couldn't get to town or Toowoomba or Brisbane or wherever it might be the centre they had to go to deliver their babies. But under the former Health Minister, Lawrence Springborg, I think Michael Beaudesert and various other community agencies, certainly in this community, were very active. I remember the front page, but at the time, all those people their arms in the air cheering because the maternity unit was reopened. Please tell us, why is a well-functioning maternity unit important and significant for a rural community? And what's the significance of that as a hospital reopening? Is that a catalyst to get other maternity units reopened across Queensland? And in fact, where is that, sorry for the three-barrel question here, and where is that process now up to? I'd like to get it up. And, are we seeing more maternity units reopened as a result of those experiences?
All right. In my mind, the maternity service is like a chockstone at the top of an arch. It's quite a sophisticated service, a maternity service. The expectations from the community are for excellent care, no matter where you are in the country. And so, to run a really good maternity service, you've got to have a lot of other things in place. It's good to have an operating theatre, it's good to have anaesthetic people, it's good to have people with surgical skills and emergency skills, and the maternity service is the thing that you can drop in when you've got these other things in place. And if you take the maternity service away, a lot of those other things fall over. And the rhetoric that we were hearing when this maternity first one really after that year in 2001 actually. It was only on maternity service will go. Everything else will stay the same. And it didn't. Service after service capability was withdrawn from our local hospital because, well, if you don't have maternity, you don't have this. If you don't have this, you don't have that. And so, for a time, the public hospital in this town was the only industry that seemed to be in a downward spiral. We were getting more service stations, more supermarkets, more fast food outlets, but it was the public hospital and more GPs. But it was the public hospital capability that was declining. And I think the second part of the question was how to turn that around.
Well, I mean, what's the significance of it? I think you've covered that one. I'd like to know the significance in terms of reopening Beaudesert, because I believe that was a test case to get other maternity units reopened. I think Cooktown might have followed after that. I'm not sure about Blackwall. I don't know. You'd be able to tell us more about that. And where is that process up to now?
All right, the significance of Beaudesert is that in a statewide sense, it was probably one of the most important ones because it was really, really big. Beaudesert was the biggest non-specialist maternity in Queensland, possibly in Australia. I was never able to really track down numbers from elsewhere in the country. But we were pushing 400 births a year here, and that was back in the late 1990s. When you look at those sheer numbers coupled with the distance to the next available services, which is Gold Coast, Logan and Brisbane, the number of people impacted and the number of kilometres travelled that had a baby here was more than basically anywhere else in Queensland where a maternity service had closed. But the proximity of this service to those other major centres made it also potentially one of the easiest to reopen. And RDAQ and other organisations made a fairly convincing argument that if you couldn't run a safe long-term maternity service in Beaudesert, then you really had to go and shut the others. It just didn't make any sense that if it couldn't be done here, that it could or should be done anywhere else. And we spent a lot of time talking about how it was actually possible to do that and things that had happened in Queensland Health and with the College of Rural Medicine that actually made it a realistic, achievable proposition. And in 2012, the announcement was made that Beaudesert would be the first one to reopen. Cooktown has since reopened. Now, Beaudesert and Cooktown are a long way apart, and not just in distance. So one of them a very large service, another one a very small service. There's a saying that when you say one country town, you say one country town. The solution to maternity services and other sorts of health services in every town are going to be as different as those towns are. There are moves afoot to reopen here. My understanding is that the health service there is quite supportive, and that there are doctors and nurses on the ground who've got the capacity and interest to see that service reopened. LIPA is another service, so another centre of interest. And there are some other sites around the state where maternity services would be very useful and would make a big contribution to the health services in the rest of the community. The thing that I've found since we got maternity back here, this is really quite predictable, but once you've got that capability, there are so many other things you can do. So having a maternity service back in Beaudesert means that we've got a surgical service back, we've got a visiting specialist gynaecologist that we never had before, we're getting endoscopy services now. So all the things that we put in place to hold that maternity chopstone at the top of the arch can hold other services in place too. That's why it's so important. The other thing about maternity services is every family's got to have babies. There's only two certainties in life, and being born and dying. Every town needs undertakers as well, I suppose. But the maternity services are something that are always going to be used if you can put them in place safely.
Thanks very much, Dr. Rice, for that insight, because it is a significant piece of Queensland's history in that sense about what happened with Beaudesert. So thank you, I know you're intimately involved. That's great to have your insight on that. I think that closes off our tour at this juncture. What I would like to do before we open the floor to questions in about 10 minutes' time is perhaps to get one comment from each of you panelists in your area of expertise. If there was one thing that would make the biggest difference to the region of South West Queensland on any of these tours, what would it be? one thing, and it's like a 2-minute elevator pitch. So we can get a 2-minute, let's keep it under 2 minutes, and that way we'll get that through in about 10 minutes, and then we can hear from these good people on the floor. Peter, I think I might start with you up the end there. If you could give us your insight on that would be very valuable.
Well, I think we need to grow people's skills and knowledge, and that's vocational and tertiary. And I think we need to be all inclusive. I think if I could ask one thing of government, is that we allow us to become more nimble as RTOs, so we can get out and do the training and the education that's required. And I think we need to get young people to understand that it's a lifelong journey. Doesn't matter where you start. If you are keen on a career in agriculture, there's many exciting pathways outside, not only on the farm, but outside the farm in the areas of service agriculture. And I think that we need to free up the industry so that everybody gets the opportunity, I guess. I've seen, in my short experience, and trying.
Cool.
Yeah, well, I think just to set the context for our industry, I mean, it was mentioned before about a growing population. I mean, I was specifically about dairy, but this pertains to all agricultural in our region and Queensland. But we have a growing population. That population needs to be fed on a local level. At the moment, in our industry, we're importing 20% of our milk. And I mean, there should be enormous opportunities, but we have a reasonably dysfunctional marketplace. I mean, we've seen some federal government intervention through lots of lobbying from our side of agriculture to put some more beef or more muscle into the competition policy. So we get a functioning market that rewards supply and demand aspect of dairy, particularly for our local produce, and that goes for any produce. Then we will see a growing industry, and you get a profitable industry, you get young people engaged in that industry, you get that forefront of technology, which I feel dairy is a leader in our agricultural industry. So we get that, and then we need to take the society as a whole in our local region with us on that, and then we can grow agricultural, in particular dairy in our region. I've got no doubt about that. So I mean, that's some of the things that we need to work on, and never lose sight as farmers of improving our own productivity, our own businesses. And that comes from upskilling, whether it's skills that you're learning formally or through an industry-led education program.
That's cool.
I encourage you to not wait for others to solve your problems, but rather invest the energy and leadership to solve your own problems. I have the great privilege of visiting many country towns, many rural communities around Australia. There's one key theme that I see in all successful rural areas, and that's not waiting for government, not waiting for someone else, but taking it on and solving it yourself. I'm very privileged to work for an organisation that comes out of that legacy. John Flynn saw a problem. He saw a distance as being a barrier in access to healthcare. And he didn't wait for government. He didn't wait for someone else to solve that problem. He put energy and showed leadership by saying, we're going to work out how to get the injured wheel in country Australia into healthcare. Originally on camels, today pleasingly we can do it in a much more comfortable aircraft. But that legacy of identifying the barrier and the self-working It's a collective responsibility that I think all of us who grew up and who live in country Australia, this beautiful part of the world, we all think that way naturally. We don't default to waiting for someone else to solve our problems. We get together and show leadership to bring solutions that we can get to our hard work.
Thanks, Michael.
Probably two pieces. Imagine one level, we've got to shift the conversation away from talking about why it's too expensive to do things for rural Australia and start the education process to get Australians realising that rural is essential for their survival and their existence. And that's a long-term journey that we've got to start it, and we've got to keep working at it and take ownership of it. And at the other level, we've got to make each of our communities rebuild the community focus, things we've talked about today, take ownership of it, and move on with that journey of creating exciting places that people want to be, that can create vibrant industries right in the backyard every day.
Thanks, Councillor.
Yeah, I think comment Paul made there was in my mind was spot on about profitability of the rural industry in particular. Helps solve a lot of the other issues that we're talking about here today. To get profitability, it's going to have to come. I mean, it'd be great to see it come through increased price, and that'll be part of it, but it's also going to come through continuing to drive productivity gains, because we are a high cost producer, and we're a high cost producer because we have certain standards that we grow our products under. We like to see that people are paid, the work on the farms are paid well for what they do. A lot of our competitors are in a different space. So our productivity gains going forward, in my mind, are going to come through from technology. That's why the NBN is an important, a really important issue, because it's not just about communication, but it's allowing industries to enable a lot of the innovation that's coming forward. And if we don't recognise that and move, we're going to be left behind.
Dr. Ross.
I'd like to tie to what Paul said earlier about issues in his community, where there's a lot of people there that are not really engaging in the community, they're really working somewhere else. I'd like to tie that in with what Greg was just saying about creating engaged and vibrant communities. And I think one of the ways that we can look at doing this is supporting our young people as they move from our community away to tertiary study, maintaining their connections with the community through that. Making sure that they're successful and actually complete their studies, don't find themselves isolated and unsupported, and make it worth their while to come back into a community that's a interesting place to be.
Excellent. First of all, I just wanted to touch on, I can see some representatives from Qd in the room, and it would be remiss of me not to say there are young farmer loans available through Qd, which are really good products. So I think we should promote those. But look, to be honest, Brad, there is no more exciting time than now than being involved in Australian agriculture. I mean, we really have the most amazing products to sell to ourselves and to the rest of the world. We've got this fabulous clean, green image that only Australia has. So we really need to grasp that and be really excited and proud of this amazing economic drive that we have by way of agriculture here in this state. We need to take what the federal government has done in and around the world with free trade agreements, and we need to grasp that now, and we need to promote this industry to our young people, because there are some really exciting, innovative avenues in agriculture. And until we really promote ourselves and be proud of this industry, I think we'll really be setting ourselves back. I mean, there's some amazing, innovative agricultural producers sitting right here in the room that I can see. And I just think we need to get out and to promote ourselves to the rest of the world. We've got an image and a product that the rest of the world really wants, so let's be proud of it.
Dr. Hockey.
Now, I think the critical ingredient for me is it's got to do with the way we think. In that I believe that if across all of the four pillars, if we really learn to accept and respect diversity of viewpoints, diversity of people, diversity of backgrounds, diversity of solutions. Accept and respect diversity within growing commitment to solidarity based on localised responses. In other words, I'm arguing for a strengthening of governance, but it is governance of ourselves first and above all, a governance of ourselves, by ourselves, but for everyone, whether that be for everyone in our family, in our neighbourhood, our town, our region, our country, etc. And so, in other words, we've got to start somewhere, we've got to start practically, so we can only operate within the networks that we are in touch with. Of course, our primary one is our families, but it's that issue of changing how we think is critical.
Thank you. And thank all the panelists for those comments. It's now your turn to put these panelists on the microphone to hear what they have to say and answer your questions. So we have two microphones down the front here. I will ask Jane Hedger, Group Sales Manager for Australian Community in Queensland NC. I've got one microphone this side of the road, and Rachel Smith, Sales Manager for the Qld Beaudesert and that side of the floor. If you have a question you would like to ask, please raise your hand and microphone will be brought to you. Please say your name, where you're from, and who you're directing your question to. And please try to keep your question as brief as possible if you can, as there will be, I imagine, other people who want to ask questions before we wrap up the 2.5. So, okay, that's enough rules from me. Let's get the questions underway. So we have a first taker there who'd like to make up questions from the floor. No one at all? Up the back, sorry, I didn't see your lights.
Thanks very much. My name is Evan Christensen. I live in the west of the sea, in God's country. The second house is important. I don't usually get up first to speak, but since someone else can have a go. I've been saying I've got a question, comment for Mr. Speaker there. Before you have a go, I know Paul played football, Paul, Harrisville. You made the comment that people only go to sporting matches if they're interested in sport, and none of us talk about, so I was saying, my football days, half the crowd they aren't there to watch a game, they're there with their mate, with their boyfriend, grandparents, along with the kids. So, yeah, Paul said that the sporting part for small communities is a huge thing. If not for the physical side, just get people out of their houses, it's all good watching NRL on Friday night. If you go in on a Sunday afternoon, you can have a lot more fun and a better time. As for farming in general, it's a hard enough business to do as it is. The National Liberal Party gave us a fair go there a few years ago, and now Labor are well and truly drawing the needles, and we'll just keep hanging on to everything and let it go. And as the rest of it, I'll drive you home, I'll come up with 100 good ideas or whatever you know, the farming venture right now, I'll look at something else.
Well, take that as a comment. So, if there are questions out there at all, please ask the panel. Perhaps I asked too many questions and you have no questions left. Yes, sir.
My name is Qd Beaudesert. I have a farm in Spain. My question really is to the council representative, and I know we have a new mayor. You talk about agriculture. Well, recently I wanted to realign boundaries on one of our property, and it embraced 3 deeds that were on agricultural ground, and one was in a high country. And yet I had to pay a very large sum of money to have a study done on the viability of realigning boundaries to make sure that the good agricultural ground was retained. And I said to the person representing that Ryan Freddy could see what it was that we were trying to put the agricultural ground in one block and divide the rest off. And on top of that, I had to make sure that the piece of ground was agriculture had a suitable housing block. It's an unusual situation where if you want good quality agricultural ground, it must have a housing block. And I think that it's just a crazy set of rules. Now, whether it applies to the whole country or just in the same group, I don't know, but it's an interesting one that needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Councillor Christensen, I think that one's for you.
Yeah. 1 week, 4 hours and 20 something minutes into the job, that's a big question to answer. I think what I'm hearing here is a concern about the rationale of some of the planning activities at the moment. I take that on board. I would say that we, in that first week, have already started a number of conversations about how we ensure the word pragmatic comes back into alignment beside a phrase as customer service, 2 words, so it makes a phrase, I guess, in the way we operate. That might take a little more than a week and 4 hours and 23 minutes. Please be patient. But what you're alluding to is a challenge all the time, and the reality that isn't seen at the community level is that from a state government level down particularly, we have a whole cascade of planning structures that actually constrain and require things sometimes from councils that our officers don't see as sensible, but they can't buck against the system because it's driven from the state government. And that's not just from, it's not from any particular political persuasion. The foundations of that are actually put in by the Canberra Union government. We're working at the moment to try and get some practical review of those processes, and that's not easy.
Yes, sir. Rachel, stand to the front.
Hi, my name is David Kenny. I live in Jimboomba and I volunteer a lot in the community as well. I'm proud of our charity and we try and do a lot of things in the community. As Neil said before, I see a lot of the community having good solutions. I see a lot of community when they haven't got a good solution, they're willing to work hard to get a good solution. What I see is a disconnect comes in the levels of government. And previous levels of government, that are where they were, you can have a pre-ticket order on that. When it comes to the councils, they don't talk very well to the state governments. The state government doesn't talk very well to the federal government. And some of the infrastructure and things that we need and health and all that we see can be solved with good governance coming from 3 levels of government. And I think we have Jim now, as the new mayor of Beaudesert, and you two there, to go out there and make sure that that works on the 3 levels of government, because the community will be behind you if you do it.
Yeah, sure, I'm happy. David, that's a fantastic statement, and I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's absolutely, and I think what I find in government is, when I first went into government, that in dealing with the bureaucracy is possibly, one of the most frustrating areas, because you don't realise the complexities that are involved in the different levels of government. But can I say though, what I find is the more regional the community, the better that communication, to be frank. And so I'm not aware of what it's like here locally, but I know, for example, in my area, we have no choice but to work with the 3 levels of government, particularly in around infrastructure projects, and because that's the only way we can get things done from our regional community. So I take your point, and certainly it can always be improved. But obviously, I'd encourage any community to work really well with the 3 levels of government. But I do take it on because there are different bureaucracies in each state and federal. Education is a perfect example.
Thanks, Steve. Sorry, Mike.
Yeah, can I just toss something in there? I've talked to a lot of people over the years about services in country areas, whether it's infrastructure, health services or whatever. And one of the answers that I keep getting back is, oh, well, if people choose to live in the country, they've just got to accept that they're not going to have any services and that we're actually going to whittle away at them every year. And I always like to think what Australia would look like if everybody chose not to live in the country. You'd be sitting in a city and it'd be cold and it'd be dark and you'd be hungry and probably naked. And And when I think of bumper stickers that I've seen in the past, every family needs a farmer, or if you like to eat, you need agriculture. Maybe we need a bit of a national campaign around, we can't all choose to live in the city. Living in the country is not a lifestyle choice, it's a national necessity. We've got to have people in the country with their hands on the ground in the dirt, doing the actual work that provides our power, provides our food, provides our clothing. And is that something that Fairfax Rural could look at supporting?
I think we should work on a bumper sticker together. Some ideas. And of course, if causing more hands into the air, which is great to see. Greg Dennis, so yeah, Robert,
G'day, Farmer Greg here from City Greenville. A couple of really interesting comments from the panel, and I think a lot of what you said, Paul, is very relevant today. Farmers becoming more than just farmers, we have to be successful business people, cease to exist. But the other critical part of farming that I've found at this stage of my life right now is there's a growing number of farmers becoming advocates for agriculture, and it ties in with what you just said, Michael, about the importance of food, and I really appreciate the comments about the importance of integration in rural communities. I just want to ask a question of the floor first. Did anybody here eat food today? Food, F-O-O-D, no. Less than half of you eat food. Wow, that's surprising. So maybe that condemns my next point, which is agriculture is pretty important. Because if we don't really need to eat food, then we shouldn't care too much about where it comes from. And what we're seeing at the moment is we're seeing propaganda on primetime TV, where the major supermarkets are educating us about what's appropriate on our retail spend and what food we should be buying. And that's actually opening up the avenue to bring in cheaper food so we can save money. And we're seeing high quality Australian food start to look for export markets out of this country so farmers can stay alive in business, which is a pretty sad reality. I am getting to a question, Deb, I just had a question. I think it's very relevant when we look at the levels of government and we see that friction between not only levels of government but within opposition versus whoever's in power. And I find it frustrating that we often find opposition really keen to bag whoever's in government. But then we're not seeing effective government when they actually get into power. So we need to be able to see what's going to be able to transpire when you guys get back in, which will hopefully be better soon.
Yeah, look, great point. It is very easy. Great. So before we, in 2012, so for the last government, we actually had to re-establish the Department of Agriculture. So it wasn't even there. So that's something we certainly did. I mean, I can list the things that we did. And yes, you are right, we have to be vocally in opposition because in my mind, and I am probably a bit too over the top with my criticism and some of the comments might have been a bit sharp when I said today, but I'm not going to take that. Because this government that we have in there now does not rate agriculture as a priority. Whilst they have maintained the Department of Agriculture, whilst they might brag on about cuts that we may have made, they have made cuts to the Department of Agriculture since they've been in as well. Our position, fundraising, is for us to hold the government to account. So I'm not going to back away from that. And if I see that they're not doing a good enough job and not holding agriculture as a number one priority, I'm going to say it. My rights, when we do get back into government, which hopefully we will, and hopefully that's very soon, we will need to continue what we were doing, and that is furthering agriculture and natural resources for the state of Queensland so we can have a future for our next generation in agriculture.
Hi, this is Madison Lawyers. This is just a question for the Shadow Minister. You talked about future generations coming back onto the land. One of the biggest issues with that obviously is parents having a comfortable retirement and children having got a business and they take that over. That's a multi-pronged problem. One of the issues in Queensland is the duty situation. So in Queensland, as opposed to most other states, it's a concession, not an exemption. Is it on your party radar to look at that picture?
Carly, that's a fantastic question, and my background, as was mentioned, is rural succession law, and I practiced in New South Wales, where New South Wales has 100% concession to stamp duty on intergenerational transfers. So when I started my practice in Queensland, I was extremely perturbed and disappointed that we don't have that here. So yes, it is on my part, my platform. It is something that I'm doing a lot of work around at the moment. Now that we're in a position, I'm continuing to go on with that. What we do have in Queensland is, so everyone's clear, we do have an exemption for stamp duty on intergenerational transfers, but only when you gift the farm. Now, give me a farmer or a landlord that can afford to gift to that next generation. So when consideration is paid, some money is paid for the farm from mum and dad, daughter or son, they actually don't get that exemption. They have to pay stamp duty or whatever that is. So that is something that I would love to be able to say to you that is going to ever happen, but it is something I am working on. And also, I will say, it might seem a minor thing, but in the last government, I actually was able to get our exemptions that we do have extended to nieces and nephews. So a little bit, that's my minor win, but I am going to continue to look into that other one. All states in Australia have a different regime, but yes, you are correct. That is something that could help us ensure that next generation come onto the property. Probably more, as important, if not more important at times, is it will actually allow a bit more money in the kitty for the older generation to be able to afford a place in town and be able to actually afford to have something to live on as well. I'm well aware of the issue, that's a very good one, and we should continue to advocate for it.
I think we're staying on this side of the room. Yes, the gentleman with the grey shirt. Yes. We do have a hand up first there. We've still got plenty of time, so we should be able to get to you all.
My name's Murray Dover. One of the main issues that came up here is the health expense, the massive health expense we have in this country. Mark from Broadside Doctor made a comment that it's not I'm not involved personally in health, it's just something that's come to my heart. The hospitals aren't the answers, the doctors aren't the answers, it's the education of what we eat, that the way we've been brought up, that he made a comment, I'd like to extend on that. And I'll probably upset a few people at the moment, but we need to bring up the fast foods, McDonald's, the Coca-Colas, the soft drinks, people that go coming out of Woolworths and Coles with 4 or 5 bottles of Coke. I think that's what we were alluding to, and I just like something like that, those comments to come out, and which will, one of the best occupations to be in at the moment, I think, would be an endocrinologist specialising in type 2 diabetes. You have a massive following, so I hope I haven't upset anyone, but
I think you've probably stimulated some more lively discussion on this area. So look, maybe Michael, if we could go to you first. I mean, what is the true picture of health in rural and regional Queensland? Are we, as they like to tell us in a nation overweight diabetics? I mean, what's the true nature of the health picture out there at the moment?
Murray's absolutely right that, as Martin said, health doesn't really happen in doctor's surgeries and hospitals, it happens out in communities. And it's smoking, nutrition, alcohol, and physical activity are some of the biggest predictors of health outcomes, and they're not something that's easy to bend or change from within a doctor's surgery or a hospital or a health service of any sort. We see communities, for example, this community, healthy and active program that's run through the council. And I think there's a day coming up quite soon focusing on that. But, what we call community health or population health is really where the money is in terms of getting good health outcomes. It's just very difficult to actually push that. And yes, there has been talk about a sugar tax. We've got hefty taxes on cigarettes. We've got duties on alcohol. We try pretty hard to make some of these things unattractive.
Sugar growers.
Yeah, what's going on upset sugar growers today? Having those we're going to have a couch tax to get people up and get them moving more. I don't know quite what the answer to that is, but no, you're exactly right. And that's something that really needs to be addressed at a community level, not else.
Mark, I'm going to you next. You some comments on that?
Across any indicator that you like to pick, a person who lives in a remote or a country area is going to be worse off on average than someone who lives in the city. A country Australian will die on average 2.5 years earlier than someone who lives in the city. The risk of a chronic illness, so a chronic illness is cancer, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, that risk is 3 times greater in remote areas than it is in the city. My comment that health happens before the doctor's surgery, these chronic illnesses are preventable through diet, physical activity, ceasing smoking, managing alcohol. I'm the last to support the United States, I'm not going to make a case for it, but I can make the case for the failure of health prevention strategies in country areas. Health prevention is most effective in the city where we have high concentrations of population. We haven't well worked out in remote areas in particular how to properly engage in health prevention in a respectful, non-managed manner. But the evidence says we've got to work it out. If I can point to a non-chronic disease indicator to make the point, the risk of dying of a motor vehicle accident on a country road is 4 times higher than it is in a city. Now, very quickly, you'll say, as all of us in this room probably do, we drive more if you live in the country because we're more risk as well. That statistic is actually taking the averages that the risk is of greater exposure in country areas, not because of longest travel, but the 3 factors. Number 1, roads in country areas are not as safe as they are in the city. 2, policing strategies are not as present as they are in the city, and that's a headcount. There are police to be able to engage in prevention strategies in cities that don't have the same coverage in country areas. Number 3, we don't see the same driver behaviours in country areas as we do in cities, again because the prevention strategies are just not as effective. So on every opportunity, on any indicator, if we're able ourselves to own these problems, to bring our own solutions, prevention works. If we want to keep people healthy, to avoid chronic illness, to avoid avoidable accidents, we've got to take that responsibility ourselves, not for embracing the nanny state, but for acknowledging the risks and taking it.
Thanks very much, Mark. Another point was made at our call before, and that the challenge of healthcare out there could be just as maybe simple as the availability of fresh fruit and vegetables, and the wide variety of foods that people in more remote areas of Australia and Queensland just don't have access to. So let's take that as a comment. We'll move on to our next question. I know we have a lady out here, and I think we might have had someone before you. I'm not sure whether this gentleman here had his hand up earlier. I'm trying to spot you as well as I can. So,
Michael Carl from Qld Beaudesert. We hear constantly in the press and today that the future is roses for agriculture through population growth, increasing markets overseas. However, in a number of studies, and in particular one I was involved with, the DPR, over a 10-year period, efficiency on the farm improved by 30%. Not 1 cent of that stayed on the farm. What's happening is, as farms become more efficient, our marketers are concentrating. We have duopoly in the beef industry, we have a basic duopoly in the grocery industry. Banking sector is an oligopoly with 2 of the participants are currently under review by ACCC for corrupt practices and fixing interest rates. I can go on and on, but the reality is that our farmers are price takers by corrupt markets through monopolisation of people purchasing our produce, as well as governments continually allowing to dump product into our country, and as well as our suppliers. We currently have a process at the moment where Monsanto, Dow, Syngenta, they're all talking about monopolising or merging and forming large monopolies for our inputs as well.
So is there a direct question?
Yeah, there's probably three people, the farmer, the banking representative, and Deborah. The key issue is the future might look rosy for the quantity of agricultural produce we can produce, but none of that, or very little of that, is resides with the farmer because of our corrupt markets, either our selling markets or our dump markets.
Thank you. Well, I might get you to answer that one for us. That one answer if we can, but I'd like to get some more questions.
Focusing on the power, I guess, of producers and what we're seeing there. The primary production is a very fragmented sector. Most of the industry is the same when you're talking cattle, grain, horticulture. They're all very fragmented. In the past, we've seen producer groups sort of get together and try and get more control of the chain, become more integrated. That hasn't been that successful. I think there's room for a return to what we used to have, which was cooperatives, whether that be cooperative marketing or cooperative buying. So the sort of bargaining power you're talking about the suppliers having, it gives you the ability as farmers to go and present with enough scale to make sure that you can get the right deal. And again, if you're marketing a product, to be going out there with scale behind you to be able to negotiate with some of the larger players.
Thanks a lot. Go to, there was a lady, I think, sorry, Rach, you had something before. Sorry, Jane, we'll go back to this side of the room. I think that gentleman there, Maven first, and then we'll come to you, from back there. Yes, sir.
My name is Peter Gamble. I'm addressing this to Country Life. Federal government has identified 32 infrastructure projects, and many include water projects. The topic of today is Grow Queensland. Those projects have been signed off and ready for implementation. However, like numerous government and bureaucratic blockages, they sit there year after year. Surely, by implementing and delivering those water projects, it would be accepted that your 4 pillars would be achieved. We need water in this state. I have travelled extensively over the last 12 months between here and Cairns. I have travelled through dry farmland, people scratching out to make a living. There is no water, yet we have abundance of water in some areas. Therefore, I ask Queensland Life to take up the project of moving this potential forward and highlighting the fact of those projects that have been identified. I believe it has an opportunity to grow agriculture. We need water for agriculture. Second thing is, if water is delivered into regions, towns will grow, communities will grow. And surely at the end of that, we would accept the fact is that the southeast Queensland corner, which is absolutely congested at the moment, then therefore there will be a reduction in the demands of infrastructure.
Thank you, sir, for your feedback. I'll be certainly pass all that on to Jennifer. I know it's watching the live stream from the office in Rome this afternoon, so I'll certainly pass that on. Thank you very much for that. We've got the lady down there in, I think it's
Just a question back to infrastructure and that was highlight. I was just wondering whether there's been any studies or references to like transit populations in regard to tourism, like scenic routes just on the doorstep of Brisbane, Gold Coast, Switch. And we get a lot of traffic on the weekends and during public holidays, and whether those numbers are taken into account when governments are looking at infrastructure, particularly the Mount Lizzie Highway, because it does become a traffic jam. Arachula is always involved going up Cunninghams. So I was just wondering whether anyone would know of anything to do with that, whether those populations are taken into account, because this area gets very well loved to death on public holidays and holidays, and people camping and everything like that.
If we're talking about using highlights, stay on the road, so we don't have to get on the point that I'll get you to address the public hospital.
You're right, I missed your name, so you're right, it's a beautiful area. This is very, very fortunate to have this area. Obviously, you have a lot of tourists, but the short answer to that is, and I actually don't really know, the short answer to that is yes, they would take into account the traffic from, because they do accounting from the tourists as well. But all I know is that it appears that when Lindsay Highway, the development that has been approved to go ahead in this region, quite possibly the government today hasn't taken into consideration the Mount Lindesay Highway and the need for an upgrade. I mean, obviously there's a bit on the road, but it'd be probably best to ask John Krause, the local member. Sorry, I can't go, but I can't
I was just going to say that the member for that is there, and perhaps we continue the conversation perhaps after the forum. But John, if you've got a quick question or a comment that you would like to make, I'll get the microphone to you. Rachel, the member for John Krause.
I'll give you a quick comment on that, Lindsay. I think the issue mainly that the Mount Lindesay is facing is during peak time of the day. So tourism traffic, of course, on the weekends is very important, but the real pressure times is at the peak times on weekdays, and that's what we need the case ready to drive through upgrades, and particularly north of Jamuna, but then eventually down here as well. But it will affect the tourism traffic as well, because people who come down here for day trips want to obviously have a safe, good road to drive on as well. So it's just an extra cog in the argument for future improvements.
Thanks very much, John. I expect to see that on that particular issue, we'll see you on the front page in the time to be very serious about the highway and telling us that there will be an upgrade coming. I'm a journalist, I can make that sort of wildly speculated. So all right. Look, I think that's where we will wind things up today. You've been a fantastic audience, and really thank you for your attendance here today. I know I realise that I'm standing between you and a cup of tea or a biscuit or something cold, perhaps up the back of the room. So I'll just get through some of this quickly if you don't mind. It's very important. So this is an ongoing conversation. It's an ongoing forum. I think it rolls on from here. As I said earlier, we've already been to Toowoomba, where we focused on the Darwin Downs, and Qld, where we focused on southwest Queensland, and today we come to Beaudesert to focus on southeast Queensland. So where to next for this caravan of courage? Well, we're on the road heading north. Next, we're going to Cloncurry on May 12. You might like to take note of some of these dates. All of these events will be live streamed as well on our website, but we also, if you can manage it, come along. Charles Towers, June 16, Emerald, July 7, and Blackwell on August 11. The Grow Queensland concept could not have been made possible without the support of our principal partners, Rabobank, who supplied today's lunch, and Elvis, QATC, Suzuki, and Case IH, and there are also many more supporting partners in behind the initiative. I'd also like to thank the Queensland Country Life team today, including business manager John Walters, editor Penelope Arthur, and journalist Mark Dodds, who is here today. Also, thanks to the Beaudesert Times team. We're presenting today's forum in conjunction with the Desert Times. Editor Ian Gilman is here, and also senior journalist Tim Shaker of the Beaudesert Times newsroom. Please look out for the full report of this event in Queensland Country Life and Beaudesert Times next week. And also look out for uploads from today at queenslandcountrylife.com.au, beaudeserttimes.com.au, which should be appearing very soon, if not now. You've been great audience today, so much so that we'd also like to see all of you at the Grow Queensland Gala Hall, which is happening in Convention Centre's Plaza Ballroom on August 5. That's another date to mark down your diaries. That will be starting at 6:30 p.m. Here comes the show for the plug. Tickets are $109 per person or $1,900 for a table of 10. If you'd like to purchase tickets, go to queenslandcountrylife.com.au. You'll find more information there about the gala and all that happens on the first week of the ECA, anticipating that to be a fantastic event, and we'd love to have you there. Right now, though, you're all back. Before we do that, please give our panellists another round of applause. We certainly could not hold these events without the support of people like you who come along to share your time and your expertise with us. So thank you. You're all welcome to join us for refreshments, courtesy of Australian Community Media. Biscuits, tea, coffee, you're not sure what else might be on offer. And we'll finish there and continue the Great Queensland conversation. Thank you.